Echo TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of Health, Safety, Emergency Preparedness, Ethnic and Nonprofit Agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.
nhớ rong ít là chỉ cái tên trang rong sát tao giải mấy số lên số tu sai tao eco cứ muốn ra luôn ta cái cho các bạn cho sự tranh hay rồi cái nắp hhồ hhồ cũng yêu mò thọ hay tôi cho cái sự thằng ra nó rằng bây giờ thằng mò nó là lúc sẽ nó yêu hạt chú ready for care là yêu cái băng rồi bây giờ mình tự mình nhổn để bông cỡ kindergarten rằng cứ là nó thấy rằng chưa sinh cứ eco băng khai rồi bây giờ là chỉ chú cái một cỡ đâu cần đó thơ cái cứ yêu kindergarten yêu ý câu chuyện cứ tranh chế ham muốn người hàng rồi bây giờ mình nhỏ ha bây giờ cứ ổn áo chỉ cho nên đó ai có cho nên bằng ít lúc sẽ hơi chịu sinh cứ ít số mong lúc một tháng rồi rằng nó thật bây giờ là thì nó bây giờ thằng rồi ở tu sư phụ cứ bao chú cái bằng giờ tụi mình nhỏ để bông cỡ khi được cái đền bây giờ là thì tất cả đó thọ mình cho cỡ lúc thì đi sang gì bây giờ duy cho sư phụ cỡ ha thằng gì cho tại cái bằng giờ để chăng ta chỉ bên rồi ổn để bên rồi tu sư phụ thằng nó bây giờ một sai ai có khá cho ta cái băng bây giờ mình tự mình hiểu là chẳng ta thọ số ra sai tao
thằng nu một pi cần đỡ giờ ít lúc xí hở và chỉnh chân chập lờ cho tụi mình nhỏ luôn nên đau tụi nhật chỉ sa bao hai tia lỡ tụi mình nhỏ một pi cỡ pi kindergarten có rong lý trả lỡ sa bao sẽ lỡ cho mình nhỏ có một cỡ dạ đã chỉ thia lỡ có ba lý trả lỡ tụi mình nhỏ theo liên ba chi giờ lý trả lo mình nhỏยังpi cần đỡ nhật chỉ bộ thầu lỡ yêu lo lỡ mua tây giả và nhật chỉ có chủ tàu bao giờ thì mua tây giả nhật chỉ mua bệnh sự ba tàu cho mình nhóm ba có chi tàu kipi nhau hậu Minnesota thời Xiong một pi cần đỡ lỡ hùa kipi kindergarten mua bé giả và có chủ mua theo li một pi cần đỡ tàu khó ý tụi mình nhỏ có chủ mua chi Xiong vấn đề lúc chuột li tỷ ý khó nhiệt chỉ có chủ mua cho đông đỡ cha chua lần đỡ cứ khó mò hay tiề tụi mình nhỏ cha chua bún bò cho đông đỡ nó huân đông đỡ cha chua khó bé tụi mình nhỏ có chủ tao một quả ý chế cho cái lo hùa early childhood screening quả ý chế cái lo có quả sẽ tụi mình nhỏ bỏ nó lù bỏ cái lo đỡ tụi mình nhỏ trong ly trà quả ý chế early childhood screening chế cần đỡ cú mua qua Head Start cú qua thia child and teen checkup cú qua thia lại bí qua thầu tụi mình nhỏ mua bé xong đó sau nhiệt chỉ hú đầu lúc chế cần đỡ và nhớ chế nên nụ cho kế qua ý chế early childhood screening thia tỉnh chạy cho tụi mình nhỏ mua qua ý chế vấn đề mua bí cần đỡ và cả tao mua cần đỡ nhiệt chỉ mua bệnh sử và tao đau giả ba tụi mình nhỏ ba có chi vấn đề có một bí cần đỡ tụi mình nhỏ từ nó cá nhỏ rong nửa cả tao đỡ rong đùa giờ li theo li chuyển chân cả cho mình nhỏ tao bự giàu cho mình nhỏ có chủ mua rau món no cả giàu tao cho nó xử lý mì hào chỉ mà chính đồng theo rau chỉ ta li sư có chủ cho tụi mình nhỏ mua chùa cứ kho mò cả cho tuần chùa qua xe nửa bộ mua mò đã chỉ cho xong thầu lúa chuột li Minnesota cho sĩ hư kia baby kindergarten rong xia giải tỏ cho mình nhỏ tuổi bi cần đỡ cho tụi mình nhỏ do tàu cỡ để giả chỉnh chân xử lý cái nhận đỡ cái ô lê cái cỏ đua hùng cầu thiên đồng đầu dàn gì từ sĩ hư ở mua đánh đỡ bỏ thơ khi anh đỡ có mua tê khổng của xì tên đỡ nhận thiên đầu giả khổng đầu cho mình nhỏ của xì thia cỡ cọp ba cho mình nhỏ cái nhận đỡ cái hài lù cho mình nhỏ cú cỡ cho tê number tê xóa hài lù thia mua tê khủng phái chia nhà tàu nhà thia cỡ sĩ chua computer cho mình nhỏ cu cỡ cho kế hài lù kế cho phong dư đo lử tù thia wa sĩ đo cho phong dư cỡ sĩ hậu thia lòng sĩ hư khía cho tu nhiệt sĩ xã cỡ lấy cho mình nhỏ cỡ tàu tàu giả nhau hậu chế cận tờ nhiệt sĩ mua bánh sử wa tàu tàu giả đo lấy cho mình nhỏ nhau hậu chế cỡ cho mình nhỏ cỡ vấn đề một bi cỡ kindergarten cho sư hư xã cỡ cho mình nhỏ bao lỡ cho xỉ thia cho đua shape vấn đề lấy dùng một bi cỡ kỳ bi nhiệt sĩ mua bánh sử ba lấy cho mình nhỏ và tàu tê giả li hải nọ đò tụi mình nhỏ thả cho thia khi tụi mình nhỏ hai tia giả nọ giờ xỉ đỡ xỉ lia thia giờ giả khổng rong li nọ vấn đề lấy một bi cần đỡ và tê giả kế và si xử lý hung cao bịa đa nình là si nhận đỡ đầu cho mình nhỏ khi cho mình nhỏ xóa tê khổng si thả hung cao nhận đỡ là si bịa đa nình đầu cho mình nhỏ cho chua nu giờ ba cho mình nhỏ cỡ tàu tê lo lũ chia thiết và cả lời mua cái chân dây chỉ tàu lời cho cái cỡ lời giá tận tê cho mình nhỏ và lời nhận đỡ là si nó nên nhận đỡ cho lời cho chua nu thở lời một bí cỡ kỳ bí lời cỡ tàu rong đùa mua tê cho nhiệt sĩ nhận đỡ cho lời cho mình nhỏ và ở họ lù nhận lù à ký thiết lời họ lù nhau hậu kỳ bí kindergarten cho mình nhỏ yếu chủ sau và tê giả用gì thầu tụi mình nhỏ mua bao xong cho nhiệt sĩ yếu chủ sầu cho kia cả mình nhỏ và tê giả tàu lời tụ khen xử lý khó cho tàu nửa ná tàu khâu chuẩn nia thiên chúa tệ nhiệt sĩ yếu chủ tàu xong bê tàu tụi mình nhỏ mua gần đó vấn đề tụi mình nhỏ mua trí xong nhiệt sĩ hu mù nụ tàu cho chế gần đó và nhau dễ là lưu chế sẽ yếu xong bê tàu tụi mình nhỏ mua bí gần đó kỳ bí kindergarten lý trả mua bí cỡ kỳ bí kindergarten do ý giả và cháu xe cỡ tàu chế nâng cho mình nhỏ họ trông nhưng xã một gần đó nhiệt sĩ mua bánh sử ba tàu cho mình nhỏ có một cỡ tàu tới rồng do bao giờ sẽ lưu chế gần đó xã có tụi mình nhỏ chơi lý trả thia mua giả đa chi vấn đề yếu một bí cỡ ba cho mình nhỏ có nó cá nhỏ rồng ba kia tê giả dùng gì tàu cho mình nhỏ vấn đề yếu một bí gần đó
ít trong nát gì cho lấy mấy tụi bố han nó nhau trong bây lại video nó ta nát gìถ้าเท่าสุดซีฟูnhau trong bây giờ mấy tụi mình nhỏ đó nó cho tao bây giờ rồi ở tuซีฟูcái bao rong cho ta biết khai bây giờ mấy tụi mình nhỏ lại chẳng để bông cái kindergartenตอนรู้ไปทางมันน้อยอย่างดรจังบลงช่องหน่วยตุกุซื้อคันแต่ใกล้ช้าเนี่ยจู่หู University of Minnesota ดรจังบลงอุจจาระตอนรู้ไปทางมันน้อยฮะ
ใช่ใช่กูตัว
ฮะจิตตั้งแต่ตัวที่ตอนรู้ไปทางน้อยอย่างเจสซี่ลีเจสซี่โอ้ยไอตัว project manager โอ้เขาเหลือเนี่ยจู่หู ready for K ปังรู้ไปจะนัดสิโอ้จองเจสซี่ก็ต้องฮะ
我操
ทางการน้องเจสซี่คิดถึงกันเนี่ยลักกว่าจีฮะยาวิเลยยังใช้อีก็โจคือเจ๋งเจ๋งให้รู้ไปจะมีอยู่
kindergarten 那么要一考我一个做我娘中长的 grade 1的 preschool 呢这呢要路线就没有目标跟的呢之后public school 是里边要走在把特雄的目前跟的你要目个做查跟的我要这跟的点了那这 kindergarten 要给呢中长的 preschool 的呢 grade 1的
chị đọc rộng lòng chú trai cứ bé tiền mua cho ít tụi mình nhiều vấn đề giống cái khi nào cái này hết lắm có trí
sau trai nên họ bé mình sota nó bé mua bé già và cho nên cho chị cho tầm ba vấn đề là cho mình tụi mình nhiều tôi cần đợi được kindergarten ý sau sẽ là cho mình nhiều bộ tấm nó nhau trí xong còn mà nhau mình sota nó mà tụi mình nhiều chúng mua trí xong trao lúc cho lên tụi mình thấy ý là cho nên thế là tôi cởi tàu khóตัวnó chỉ tụi mình nhỏ nó cho đón tới và là hồi chat chua nó immunization record nó hồi nó chat vào sau trái nó chỉ thì cho nên cho chỉ tầm bài gia đình tới nó tua thầu cho tụi mình nhỏ tôi chuẩn bị khó bé nó chỉ tụi mình nhỏ nó bắt đầu cho một cuộc họp hoa qua bọn trẻ tê sửa sẽ tụi mình nhỏ cái lo trong này cha nó chỉ là hồi early childhood screening nó chỉ khó nói vậy khó chỉ chân và cho nên cho chỉ ba có xí có xóa thọ lại cho tụi mình tôi chế cần tới tôi chọn bề chế lại tụi mình bây giờ nó lại nó chỉ theo là chỉ mua cái chỗ chùa lại cái tới mình cho lại nó
Jesse giờ này này thơ câu chỗ cho nãy chỉ rồi tao bang bố cho mình dùng một cái khi nó cái này trong cái trí
thơ câu chỗ chấp là mà nãy chỉ tao cho chúng tôi yêu bông thảo là một trò tổ trí trong yêu một khi cái này nãy chỉ tao nhận tới giờ tao hùng câu giờ tao biết anh này giờ tao cho ya thì cho cái và 18 tuổi nhớ rồi lúc vào chơi thì khó tao một này cái nãy chỉ chủ 8 tuổi cả tụi mình đó nó cá hồ còn nó cá hồ nó giờ 8 tụi mình đó còn một cái tàu rong cha chỉ ta nên nó giờ 8 cho mình cho muốn chỉ tham mộ là cứ khó mót thì nó có tụi mình nó nếu mua đã chỉ là có thế thì mua khó kia tàu thì tụi mình nó giờต้องการcái 8 lý chaต้องมันเดอcáiว่าnhớ lại thì cho early child screening của doctor chấm long hành đỡจะอีกข้ออีกกฎตัวเนี่ยเสียตัวจมูกว่าก็เดียเขาต้มจีเขาเดียจะเลยจันต้องเดอกุมม้อยจุสาก็ว่าจนจัวก็จะเรียกเขา record ว่าเราจะ up to date นะจะขณะอีกเขาจะแจ้งให้มีตุ้มยอยาจุป้านี่จะมีตุ้มยอก็เลยจะมียอนั่นเนี่ยฮะปืนเจ้าเทียนึยันปืนเจ้าน่ะจะนึกลึกจงดอนนึกก็ตัวจงดอต้องมันเดอยาตัวป้ามีอ่ะเกน่าเกหัวเทียเกน่าเกหัวตัวมีอ่ะก็มีอ่ะตัวน่าตัวหัวจงก็นายยี่ขาป้ามีอ่ะจะเกเกิดมาแต่ยาจงนายยี่ขาจังจัง
giờ này nó dạng cứ trên chiến trang bơi cứ băng rồi bây giờ mình nhiều ổn định bố một cái khi nó cái được giờ lấy chăng
thao lên tận Jesse hai nó ta mà bây giờ nếu chỉ bây giờ tao làm ba xíu thì bây tụi mình nhiều anh nói nếu bút tao bao nếu lông bè lúc nhớ lại lông bè lúc sành lúc mong lông này cả tới khi nhà hôn rong nè vì thì thầu tụi mình nhiều một trò chơi cần tới chỉ là hai lông này cả sẽ là chỉ hai lông mong lại tụi mình nhiều bút bao chai nhỏ bút bao nè bao chỉ lông bè tụi mình nhiều oli nếu bút tao bao số y một cho cậu lông mong lông này cả bút tao bao cho xì thế nhớ lại cho khâu lửa nè chỉ ta lên đó nhớ lên mấy cái hay là shapes nó bên mong bên chúng mình lột thì mấy cái thì một cái shapes nó lấy bên tụi mình nhớ bắt đầu bao giờ trong đó bắt đầu bao giờ khó lo khó mê giờ thì nó bỏ ý giả lo nó bắt đầu bao giờ khó nói khó lo nó bỏ ý giả mê nó bắt đầu bao giờ khó nói khó mê cho nó giờ ít khó chỉnh chén và bên chúng mình nhớ giờ tập bao vấn đề là cái mình tập chơi cần đó vì thầu lại một số to lại chứ cho nó giờ cho sư phụ yok kia lại nhớ tập chơi cần đó nữa
bộ tam bây giờ thằng có hạt cho structure có thằng mình chỉ cho họ structure sẽ như thế
chứ structure nó mà giờ ít khó chỉnh trang bé bỏ cái cho phát kia tàu hay thì cho nên cho gì và họ vào họ trên bao hay thì nước kia và trong lúc vào lúc chế có cho mình bao hay thì lúc sẽ hở nó mò lúc sẽ hở nó sẽ hở bự lúc sẽ hở nó sẽ hở sai TV lúc sẽ hở nó sẽ hở mộtตื่นtới là sẽ hở một xí nó chế thầu tụi mình yêu tàu lò chế có kia cho lo qua chế tụi mình mê tới bỏ lại chế thầu tụi mình chọn là ở trong bé trong này bao lù có bỏ tao tụi mình như khi tao nó chế thầu nó chế tụi mình tới bao thì lúc xưa nó cho lấy trà nó chế còn nó nếu ba tao cho mình nhiều vì để thầu cho mình nhiều nó một trò tao chế cần tới chế tao chế cần tới là một structure ý à chế là một số tao chế cho lúc xưa nó là ôi giả nó cho lúc xưa nó là ôi giả tao lại nó chế nếu khó bao tao vào tao chế một trò tao chế cần tới nó chỉ bao lo nó chế cho mình nhiều nếu một trò tao chế cần tới nếu ý là những gì trong nếu cho cái cần tới là cái cỡ lô là giờ thì cái cỡ cho cái trái chia tao nữa
Jesse giờ này bố một lần có chơi cứ băng gì rồi cho mình nhiều ha rồi giờ cho nãy chỉ băng rồi giờ tụi mình nhiều ha
เขาควรจีโตเขาจับลงให้นำมาเขาเดียมีอยู่นั่นเนี่ยตัวเป้าเฉาว่าตัวนึงตัวเข่งเนี่ยตัวเป้าแต่กูยังน่าจะชอบกูยังส่วนเนี่ยกูยังตัวเขากูยังบ้าตัวกูตัวเข่งเลยจ้ะแต่น้อยยังเขาจังจังเห็นตัวมีอ่ะเนี่ยตัวบ้าเขาเอาตัวเมียเขาเดียเนี่ยตัวเป้าเดี๋ยวเลยกู我是那里家那呢，我包还得我写我空里家头来，来家我搞我后生那来我里家，只大人那都只后生那米啊，所以但是嘛呢就包掉里，也没多开个呢我一样那呢要比里家，呢就包掉我一样那也到，呢个师傅一个个么。mỗi giờ nó trong chia tỏ một cái giờ chưa là cái giờ ổn trả, thì giờ trong này ít khó chỉnh chỉnh tôi chấm miệng nó thế nè, vậy thế này ít khó cả tụi miệng này chụp bao giờ nó khó quyền gì này giờ có thể miệng nó này tao tao giờ cả nếu mua giò nè, như này thì nếu mua khó thìกูอยากเสียนต้องเดินเรากูเป้าเสียกูง่ายคนเรากูป้องกันก่อนนึกมั่วรู้ได้รู้จอเราหมดเชื่อหนึ่งจะกี่เกิด
thì Dr. Blong giờ này ta nói bố một tây giang là giờ cho chỉ tranh chiến bố khai nhất rồi khi đừng cái đừng nhất lắm có trí
thảo bé cho mình nhỏ một số tổ chức cần tao kindergarten là trẻ cho nên khu bí kia cho mình tụi mình nhỏ chẳng chẳng chấp lại giờ lên cho xin nhỏ hai ta nó tụi mình nhỏ này tôi số tổ chức cần tao này tới bao tao chọn tao giả ấy li ba là sẽ này tụi khen lại đi cho lại khâu tê cho này chọn tao là chia mỗi chọn tao mù ta mỗi chọn tao khởi rong cho nó mà này khuแต่เตี้ยมันในคุณต้องจิตต้องการหลอกเฮียแล้วจะถอนนอกจากในคุณที่เราหลอกเฮียแต่โอเลนในช่องเบช่องลิจาในเราช่องจะเหนียนต่อในเราช่องจะนั่นเราหายจะรูเป้โฮลีนั่นอเมริกาจะวาวส่วนนั้นอย่างจะเป็นมองมาตรงนี้จะจีน่ะจะหลอกเฮียจะตัวลงโอเนี่ยจะหายลูกชัวลิจาตัวชัวโอลูกชัวลิจาเนี่ยจะถอนนอกในคุณที่หลอกเฮียเราจะต่อนอกจะหลอกเฮียเล่ชัวก็จะแต่เตี้ยมาเท่าตาห้องคิดกันมาตัวมีจุดชัวอีจันทร์เก่าเนี่ยเขาน้อยเขาสุดสาก็ต่อในจะยีตัวเขาเลยยีเขาเลยนั่นจุดป้อกตาในจะ shapes เนี่ยเลยจะแต่รู้แต่เจจะ circle จะ triangle แต่นั่นหรอก่อนในป้อกตามาเป้มาวิเป้ยมองเจแต่เตี้ยมาลงเมกามาแล้วแต่กับป้อกตาเป้มองเราเป้โอกับป้อกตาเท่าวิให้เตี้ยเป้ปอเตาให้เตี้ยจะมีเนื้อป้อหลุมมองเจตัวกับลงเมกาแล้วก็ตัวจังชะอย่าเราchỉ bao lồng môngจะตัวกับอเมริกาเราchỉ bao lồngอเมริกาจะเราchỉ baoให้แต่เราลงมองตรงในจานเราจะเราจะกับกันชาติที่นั่นจะกับแนวจีในย้อนต่อว่าต่อเจนะไอ้ก่อนในสุดท้ายต่อหายต่อสุดท้ายก็เราchỉซ้อใช้เขียเตียนะจะถอดแล้วbao lồng môngตรงจะถอดต่อเจกันได้จะมีเกิดตอนต่อยาจะซีฟื้เกี่ยชงได้เกี่ยไฮโลเกี่ยวอลเล่เกี่ยหมกเขียย้อนเลย science computer จะในที่จะเจ๋งกันก่อนnhớ tàu vào tàu chế bây giờ ôn nhiều gì bây giờ tàu chơi bây giờ mình một đôi dạng nói thầu một số tàu lại chế bây giờ mình nhớ theo chúng một cái nhiều share cho nó.
Như là Jesse, đặc biệt rộng lòng là cỡ xì, cỡ shape, cỡ size, nói bây giờ khá bây giờ mình tụi mình nhớ lại chẳng hỗ trợ.
Có color shape, cái size mà giờ ý cho và trực chẳng hình có cụ thể trực chẳng mà vì thế nhưng mà hỗ trợ nó chấm nhỏ nó này như mua cho chỉ cho và mua chở xì na bây giờ cái chụp bao cái chấm nhỏ thì mua cho chỉ cho chở xì nó cho lấy trả giờ không nếu mua xì lia xì đỡ xì đa xì đu nó trong lấy trả đó có khi tụi mình có mua giả xì từ có khi có chân có nếu bao giả xì từ có này có chân chân hay tụi mình có tiền shape nó mà ít có tiền những cái tiền lu cái kinh vào là lu sát sinh cổ vào là lu đã chỉ tên giả nó có shape này cho chân chân hay chỉ cho nói cho thì cái còn nếu mua lu square này chỉ lu square này tuy là nếu chúng mua tí lu square sẽ nếu chỉ mua lửa lu chỉ miếng cho chụp bao khó chân còn nó có size này mà vậy thì có một cái miếng mua lu khó lọ lu khó mày cái để mua lu khó mày này thì bao thì lu khó mày lu khó lọ lu từ có size này khó chân chân thế mà bây giờ và pin được miếng cho cái cỡ và chân chân cho miếng nó chụp lại.
Chúng là cái cỡ xì tên là xứ chúng chỉ cho yếu cỡ trang đỡ nản đỡ bỏ lại yếu hà lưu nó yếu khá bây giờ mình yếu lại chăng đọc tôi rộng lòng.
Bé bỏ tàu hay thì cái cho phơi luôn hay thì cho tuần này và nếu xí lại có 9 นาที lọc hè cho mình nhỏ tàu lấy nông nè thảo tụi mình nhỏ nó một chỉ xong tụi mình nhỏ tới tàu lên tới bé phá tàu tới cha cho mình nhỏ tuần này nếu xí sẽ làตื่นtới cho mình nhỏ nè chỉ bé bao hay thì bé mong là mà bé ít chữ hải đan hàng đó bé tụi mình nhỏ còn nói vậy khó chỉnh chỉnh chỉ là lên nó xí lúc xí hải là hải đan hàng đó bé cho mình nhỏ xí là còn nói tới qua tàu bé cho mình nhỏ cởi tàu lùแล้วจะเจอให้ลงมองลงไม่กล้ารอเลปตากูให้คนน้อยเขาป้าเลยนะเขาอ้อตัวชิหันเราไปจะมีนัววีจะถอดไปจะมีมัวชีต่อเต้นะจะปอดนิ้วเต้ก็แต่ว่าตัวเตี้ยตัวนิ้วเลยปอดในก็จะตัวเตี้ยตัวนั่งนะจะเขาน้อยเลยตัวปอดเตาให้เตี้ยจะน้อยล้มไปหัวใจเลยเราจะถอดแล้วมันสั่งต่อเจ๊กันได้หรอแล้วมันจะน้อยเราสั่งซื้อเขาเนี่ยไปว่าไปเจ๊เลยอย่างเราไปเคลียร์ตัวเลยเต้ไต่เต้เดียเต้เราเต้นอนเราไปเคลียร์ตัวเลยก็หายจำไปก็จะจ่อไปจีซ้อว่าเลยไปมองหายยังมองก็ได้เราแต่มองก็อ้อไปไต่รอนะจะมีจีป้อแต่อ้อไปไต่จีไต่เราอย่าอ้อไต่เราอย่าไปไต่จะหายก็จะจ่อนัมเบอร์เลยตั้งจะสีหายก็ลงไปจะจ่อจะนอจะมีต้องมีอยู่เทเลเกิดเต้าแล้วนะ
chị hạt dù có number nên Jesse yêu hà lấy cho mình yêu sao tao
dùng gì nè number mà nhớ tao vào tao chơi nhưng mà mua thiệp miệng tao giả xử lý tết thì tiền thì tờ xử lý tiền number ta lại là giờ tiệt tê ni và chúa tại địa nín trộm món nọ có miệng ba mua cho tụi nâng cho lú pa cho ta địa cho ta chơi thế nào bây giờ năm bữa thằng thọ chỉ ta lên nọ miệng cho bố tê oli nhia nè này bây giờ xua li cha oli tiệt ý xin nó giờ bị cho lú ở xin bị cho lú cổ xin bị cho lú oli cổ xin nó lo lú mấy cái thì cổ xin nó họ giờ hai li cha chỉ xin lo lú mấy cái họ hai li chaแต่nó giờ ít khó chịu chăng hayเขาต้องมันเลยมีอะไรจุดโป๊ะแต่อีมงเนี่ยตัวนั้นเบอร์ได้จีอ้อมงนั้นเบอร์ได้จีชามงนั้นเบอร์ได้จีแต่น่ะเขาเนี่ยเขาจะเชื่อเราจะมีอะไรที่มาเตะใหญ่จนเนี่ยจะมีอะไรป้าหรือจะเกิดว่าจะเล่แต่เขาเล่เนี่ยป้าหรือรุ่นหนึ่งป้าเกิดลิจ่าตัวเลยตอนนี้
เราคือจำลองจากการรู้มาหาสุขเกิดแต่ไปคำบังไปจะมีก็จูรู้เชื่อปุ่มกันแต่ก็ปุ่ม independent เลยปุ่มจิตชอบต่อหรือตัวโอตัวปุ่มบางต่อปุ่มตัวแข่งปุ่มโอปุ่มเตะเล่เตะหนูเลยโอชีเลยเกิดกันต่อกันต่อเจกันแต่เราอยู่บางเลยจังตา
เขาน้อยอย่างเขาจริงจังไปมองมาไปจะมีอย่างแม่จะไปให้แต่มีอย่างจิตตาป้าราจีนั่นจะไปเพ่ป้าเลยตาเลยนะอย่างจะเท่ามันสอดต่อเจกันได้จะเท่านั้นเลยจิตป้าว่าเราเลยตัวแข่งแต่เขาน้อยเขาเขาจริงจังว่าไปวันนี้ว่าจีน่าจะไปตัวหลอกคงไปตัวแข่งมันจีหลอกแค่ตัวลอยแต่มีอย่างตัวล่อเลยไปปลอกเสียงจะไปตัวปิ๊กแค่ลอยแต่เจ้าเข้ายาเจ้าเลยจ่าเลยเข้ายาเลยจ่าเจ้าซักเลยจ่าน้าจีชอน้าเลยจ่าถมห้องน้ำเลยเนี่ยเขายามงเลยจ่าสีเลยจ่าน่าจะไปแค่เลยเนาะเขาว่าเขาจะถอนในมุดเจ้าต่อเจกันได้จะแต่อย่างนั้นเนี่ยจะต้องการเราเลยตัวละอ้วนเลยจีเลยจะได้เราในมุดน้องต่อเจกันได้จะเนี่ยจีบป้อตายจะในมุดเราตื้ออยู่ติดเขาเนี่ยน้องนะจะเขานอนลูกตัวมีเยอะแท้นั่นจะเขาเนี่ยเขาจริงจังก็เป็นอย่างเขาว่าเขาจะไปตึกเฮียจะนอนได้เลยจะทำมุดต่อเจกันได้จะซื้อฟื้นถ้าจีต่อชิเช่หลักเฮียอย่างนั้นจะชัวตัวมีเยอะตัวอีห้องน้ำมันเก่าปลอกกับจิตตัวจะสุดท้ายอย่างนั้นตาจะในคูสิลุเชื่อเห็นดาวหลักเฮียจะไล่โลเฮียจะหายโลโลเฮียจะเลยจะน้อยจะมีต้องมีเยอะเกิดต่อใช้จอนั้น
เจสซี่ยันนั้นจอนน่ะจีคือย้อนชาเก็บปังคือภาษาเจ้าพวกเจ้ามีอย่างมันก็early childhood education เนาะอยู่ต่อเลยจ้ะ
early childhood นั่นมันจอนแต่เนื้อมันปลอกจีหยาดฮะearly childhood นั่นมันยัง ECFE นะอย่า early childhood เลยจะ preschool program พวกนี้ early childhood จะ child care center และ center care นะ early childhood เราหมดตัว kindergarten นะพวกนี้ยังขอดูแลจะปีตัวมูเจ้าตัว kindergarten จะใน early childhood แต่จะมาเจ้าจงที่จะมีมูการจะ program นะอย่าตัวหูตัวจะเจอกันเถอะก็เป้าที่จะเจอกันเถอะนะในเมื่อจะ program ตรงนี้จะหรือเตะเขา program นะก็ว่าเขาเหลือตัวยันดาวเลยก็จะ qualify ก็อย่าจะหมดตัวเหลือเขา program นี้จะแต่อยากตรงนั้นอีกก็จริงๆเนี่ยเราจะ early childhood program ไม่ใช่ได้ตัวเป้า
เราคือจำลองเห็นตอนนี้มีอยู่ปีกันดาวไปสังจีคือตัว看到都似乎来รู้เช็คกันได้ไปต่อเลยจ้ะ
จะทั่วเสียงถอดรถจอดเห็นตัวเลยอันเดรถจอดเห็นตัวนั่นมาในคูเรายังสั่นได้ตัวอยากแต่ก็มาจงได้อันเดตานะจะรวยแต่รวยมั่วอีหมอเราจะเนี่ยสิตัวชัวเช็คกันได้เราจะท้อก็จะเนี่ยจะสิหมดเรารู้เชื่อหันได้จะในคูยาหลอนรอเนี่ยถ่าเนี่ยถ้าบอกให้แต่อะไรตัวในคูปเลยตัวในเนี่ยเขารู้จักกันได้แต่อย่างเนี่ยมั่วแต่ไม่ได้จีเลยเนี่ยมั่วได้จีนงเนี่ยเขาตัวเราตัวถ่าเราจะเนี่ยถ้าบอกให้แต่ถอยมั่วจีเทเลปอกาโฮนั่นน่ะจะคนนั้นเขาจริงจังเนี่ยเขาหมดจีเตาเลยน้อยเนี่ยเขาแต่กุจีเป้าลูจีปากาโฮนั่นหรอเป็นหมดเจ้าของหอมจงเตาเนี่ยเขาตรงใจหมดเราหรือถ้าจ่าเนี่ยเลยสับเบอร์เป็นอะไรอย่างจะเนี่ยเขาหมดเจ้าของหอมมาป้านเนี่ยเราเตาอย่างเขาจีตาเล่นได้ยังเนี่ยเขาจีเป้าเกลือเนี่ยเขาตรงจะสีหล่อมาเลยป้านเนี่ยเราเตาอย่างนะ
เจ็บตามไปชุดชัวร์เชื่อจะสุดท้ายใช่ไหมไปถามแต่ไปยันจีมันจะใช้จังจีคาร์ลอนกิตุปุ่ยปุ่นกังลุมมองเลยเขาต้องไปเขาเต้นเหม็นลูกไปยันจีมอง
เนี่ยชิมตั้งแม่งนะแกชอบไฟเสียวมาเมื่อจัวเสียวเราพอถอยจะไปเจ้าเราจะตัดสินมาเราปอดเตาให้เดียจะมีอยู่ในเป้าเนี่ยอย่าโลอันได้นะมาในมุกอย่าโลที่อ้อนแต่ใช้ชาตัวในชิปเป้าเนี่ยอย่าโลนะมาอย่าเล่นมาเจ้าวันเนี่ยวันที่สุดท้ายก็จะสตาร์ก็จะเสียจะมีอยู่อย่าเป้าหลงมองรงจะถอดแล้วตัวจอจะแล้วเกิดตัวแจ้งชาจิตาเล่นแต่ไปปอดเตาให้เดียจะมีอยู่ออกกับไฮสคูลเนี่ยเป้าอ้อยอย่าโลจะเนี่ยจะเกิดตัวรงชาจะมีอยู่ออกกับตัวอย่าโลซะนะจะก็สตาร์ก็จะเสีย
我找到的让龙哈，Jessie 佢咩城市上都做俾唐望咯哈。只能攞到俾我俾街路正正佢樣幫助咩個咩就咩都咩嘢，包我哋幫唔夠佢那個人出嚟，咦就咩嘢那個樣樣幫忙比較佢那個人到樣，我那只麼平時幫過就咩嘢 bằng chi mong bí cỡ anh kindergarten cái bé nhau hulu Saint Minnesota cho mình nhau mua chi Xiong bao mong bí cỡ tàu kindergarten ít trong là chỉ bé kế sĩ thằng là cái ở cổ trong nó chú chỉ để nó sư của bạn hay cha sa ta mấy cái hai cái tàu đặc tử rằng Blong ha Jesse tôi giờ lúc chuyển chính nhiều bang cho bé cho mình tụi mình nhiều cho cái cần đó cái sao một rồi yang tận đây bé kế sĩ thằng hồi ở cổ mấy lúc lấy từ mỗi ra giờ ta mấy sáng bao chú rằng bé thằng mà nó là rằng cái bé tôi thằng nhá rồi ở cổ là thằng mấy một sai tàu rồi bé lúc website cái www.ecominnesota.org của yang một thọ có mấy số nên số tu trốn chỉ cái nào các họ hồ sơ bé mà sinh chỉ lử lì ta chỉ chỉ là nó thọ mấy sao trở tổ mấy lúc TV xem gì mong lấy bé cho nạt thì sau nó bé chẳng có một cái cho khăn gì ở trong đó.
Hi, I'm Matt Burke of the Minnesota Vikings. I learned a lot at Harvard, but nothing could prepare me for being a dad. I had lots of questions. Now I can find answers on the Minnesota Parents Know website, developed by the Minnesota Department of Education. Raising children can be rewarding and challenging. That's why trustworthy information at your fingertips is important for you and your child. To learn more, go to mnparentsknow.info, because when parents know, children grow.
You're watching a special edition of Echo TV featuring a discussion on getting your child ready for kindergarten. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, the Executive Director for ECHO, which stands for Emergency and Community Health Outreach. You know, the beginning of a child's formal school, it's called kindergarten, and it's a big step for children and their families. In our first half hour, we did an overview of the subject, and now we have an opportunity to bring together a whole panel of experts for a roundtable discussion on how we can get our children ready for kindergarten. Let's introduce our guests. First, we have Huda Farah. She's the Executive Director of HEAL, which stands for Health, Education, Access, and Leadership, and she's a former ECHO TV host. And Hoxie is the Assistant Director for Student Health and Wellness for St. Paul Schools. Also joining us, Sandy Benson. She's a kindergarten teacher at the St. Francis School District and a consultant for the Minnesota Department of Education. Angele Passe is a consultant and writer in early education. Her book, My Kindergarten Book, helps children and parents prepare for kindergarten, and it's both available in English and Spanish. And she's at work on a new book on the transition into kindergarten. And also joining us, Jesse Cowley. He is the Hmong project manager for Ready for K. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to improving school readiness right here in Minnesota. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us for this roundtable discussion on ECHO.
Thank you for having us.
Really appreciate you bringing all your different expertise to our program and to our viewing audiences. And kindergarten is a big deal, let's face it. It's a huge opportunity for children to get started and be successful in life, as we all are lifelong learners. Let's start with just an overview with what's kindergarten like? What's a typical day? And maybe I should direct this to the kindergarten teacher appropriately. What's a typical day like?
Well, a typical day is the children get off the bus, and then we start with some kind of opening, and then you move into some maybe large motor activities so the children can get their antsiness out. And then we have to move into some pretty heavy curriculum, because we are responsible for standards within the state of Minnesota. And we do reading, writing, math, science, social studies, health. And sometimes the children on certain days will go to either Phi-Ed, music, art, or technology.
What can parents expect? I mean, parents this is their first child going off to school. And it seems like all parents can remember. I remember that first day when I let you go. What should they expect from schools or from that whole first day? Anyone?
I think they should expect a totally exhausted child, because it's a lot of transitions, it's a lot of anxiety of what's going to happen next, and those children move into the routine faster than any of us ever thought of moving into the routine. They catch on very quickly, and they're ready to move and learn.
What about for students who might not have English as their primary language? What about expectations for them?
Well, keep in mind that some parents have a fear that their child, sons or daughter will be going to school. They might expect phone calls. They say, you know, my child might not understand what the teacher is asking him or her, and then they will stay home and get worried about it. You know, just like in the first week, I have to be home to make sure that, you know, when the teacher calls, I'm ready to pick up my kids. For example, a child might get some kind of accident, you know, or might not get along with the other kids in class, and there might be some other issues. I noticed that some child that are going to schools at kindergarten, they don't want to leave their parents. They were crying, you know, I want to go home. I want to go with mom and dad, because, you know, that's you know, the fear that they have, you know, in the first couple of weeks. So
sure. And typically when children will start school, if they haven't spoken English before, they might just continue to speak their home language. So that could be a little surprising for the teacher too.
How does a teacher address something like that?
And so most teachers are actually learning to have very positive body language, to be nice in English, to speak a little slower. So then the children start to realize that the teacher is going to be okay, and so are they. And I think it's important for parents to actually tell their children that the teacher may not speak their language. And if they have that advanced preparation, then they can sort of like think about, well, there might be an alternative way of communicating.
And it's important that when we're trying to integrate children together in a classroom situation from all different types of backgrounds, making the educational experience very rich and diverse at the same time. And so that's really important. One quick question here about getting your child ready for school in terms of reading to them. How important is reading to them? We know it's important, but are there studies or research out there that say, you know, I mean, reading is everything?
Well, reading is not the only thing that we do for the kids. I think we have to tell stories. We have to communicate with the kids every day. I mean, that's, you know, that's gonna help besides reading. And reading is important for them because that will help them build their vocabularies and will help them, you know, communicate better and recognize words better outside their native language. I mean, I think that's crucial that every parents need to spend time and read for the kids.
We'll add more to that in just a moment as we're hearing from our guests that reading to children is a key to preparing them for kindergarten. Right now, we'd like to show you a short video on just that subject.
Hi! Hello, beautiful. Change of plans, honey. Oh. We're going shopping.
What?
Back at 4. The guys are all here. Have fun.
Hey. Game's on. TV's broken.
It's Dad's turn.
It's broken? He's got to be joking.
Now what?
Well, what do we do? Here, hold us. This is George. He lived with his friend, the man with the yellow hat. I like George. He was a good little monkey and always very pure.
It's never too early to read with your child.
How many out of it? 1, 2...
Even before they can read words.
It's a dog.
Kids are learning from you, connecting with you.
Faces so baby will laugh at you.
Kids like to get involved in reading, and if you make reading fun, they won't be able to get enough of it.
What about 3 Little Firefighters?
Read together. It helps kids learn.
For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
You're watching Echo. We're talking about the importance of reading to your children so that they can be ready for kindergarten. And Angele, you want to talk about it's not just reading to your children, but it's also talking to your children.
Right, it is. And so when we talk with children, we actually help them develop their thinking. We ask them questions. We help them develop their vocabulary, and especially for families who have two languages in their family, or even if they do not speak English, that they are able to speak in their home language is very important. It's actually going to be the foundation for their later learning. And so we want to encourage families to do a lot of talking about anything that happens at home, that happens in the street, the birds, a bird in Somali is a shimbiro, I think. And so a shimbiro does the same thing that a bird does. They fly, they eat insects, they do all these things. So for parents to know that their children will develop their language and vocabulary from their home language and then go into English and is very important.
And more now, bilingual education is required and throughout the educational system. Get them started early.
Yes, and speaking both languages is very important.
Let's talk about health for a second. Health plays a key role in a child's ability to learn in kindergarten. Obviously, eat right, sleep a lot, get what you need to be healthy. But just exactly what would you recommend at this stage of the first day of school?
For the first day of school, I think bring those immunizations, bring that immunization record, but also to have the child ready for school with a good breakfast that day and every day and a good night's sleep before. We know that kids who have had enough sleep and the right things to eat and some exercise will learn better. I'd also just like to say, if a parent's worried about something with their child's health, maybe their child has asthma or some children have allergies to certain foods, that we can, and that's one of those fears that parents have when they send that child off to kindergarten at the beginning. If they talk with the teacher or the school nurse or the principal about those worries, we can make plans, individual plans at school, so that their child will be safe.
And things that may be going on in the home too, like both parents are working, so maybe the child is going to aftercare after school or something like that, or maybe there's some problems in the home, a sick family member or something. The emotional aspects of a child's health are important to consider as well.
Right. The adults in the school really want to help the children, but we can't do that if we don't know what the parent sees is going on for the child at home, I think.
That's true. And what's important also is building the self-esteem of that child, their emotional health before they go to kindergarten, them being ready and having independence and knowing how to socialize with other children. And though the parents are not there, their brothers and sisters are not there, but they are able to make friends and they're able to play with other children is very important. So their emotional stability and self-esteem is very important.
There are so many influences now. There is the influences at home, the influences of the neighborhood. There's television. There's music. There's computers. There's iPods. There's cell phones. There's text messaging. There's just so much information for a 5-year-old child getting ready for kindergarten. What kind of limitations or what other things should be considered in preparing children for kindergarten and the use of technology and so that you don't become a couch potato, you know what I mean? You use just enough to learn and it enriches education, but not too much and can be a problem.
In our school, we like to talk about it as screen time. And we tell the parents to limit your child's screen time. So that includes your videos, your TVs, your computer, the movies that they see, anything that's on a screen. Because we do want the kids outside playing, and we want them reading and looking at books. We want them going to the library.
Is there a recipe for that, like X number of hours for this, Y number of hours
Well, it depends upon which family you're in. Okay. Because every family has their rules. But to really look at it, I've never heard of a recipe for how many hours or minutes you should do it, but just limit it and be really conscientious of it. In my kindergarten class, I asked the kids, how much time did you spend last night? And I also want to know, did you play outside? Did you read books? Did you listen to music? Because there's a lot of other really enriching things you can do within a life in the home of a child.
Well-rounded education that way too, and experience, especially with exercise these days. So many of our activities create us to sit still. We mentioned earlier that stories can be really important part of learning, and we'd like to show you a quick video that shows parents how easy it can be to create stories for children.
Kids love to hear stories.
Who's that, Granny?
Oh, that's my Grandma Isabel.
My name's Isabel.
Real stories.
Grandma Isabel just loved horses more than anything else in the
And make-believe stories.
Once upon a time, up grew a beanstalk way up into the air.
And kids love to tell stories.
The great ballerina, Colin. She is right here.
Can you show me?
Storytelling stirs curiosity, builds vocabulary, and creates an interest in reading.
Oh, this was for her horse, Blackjack.
Stories help kids connect to words and to you.
And did you know he was Grandma Isabel's first horse?
So be a storyteller.
Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up.
Oh, all you need now is a horse.
Get up on the big horse.
Oh.
Share stories. It helps kids learn. For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
We're talking, too, about how much TV time is enough time. Angele, how much TV time have you heard is enough time?
Probably about a half hour to an hour a day, no more than that. And we know many children will spend 4, 5, even 6 hours a day watching television, 4- and 5-year-olds, and that's much too much.
That's a contributing factor to exercise issues and health issues.
And also, in some ways, I know there have been studies that show that when we are watching for a long time, our brain sort of like slows down. And so that doesn't happen when they are playing, for example, or when they are reading and looking at books. So we want those little brains to really work very fast. And so we want to give them the opportunity to get off and maybe come back to their television later on, but just go and play for a while.
And, of course, be choosy about the types of programs that they're watching.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about going back to the language comments that were made earlier. We talked about the importance of retaining the primary language in the home, whether it's Spanish, Hmong, Somali, or whatever. What if, I mean, how much English should a limited English proficiency student, in the beginning anyway, have in command before they start school? Is there something in particular you think they need to have? Numbers or letters or?
If they have enough language to get along, which we call sometimes social language, to talk about what they need, to say hello, to say goodbye, to know some of the common words, like it's time for lunch, and sort of like words to get along. So if they have been in a preschool program, they probably have had their instruction in English, because that often is the language of instruction. If they have not, and if they have been at home, then they can start learning English in school.
What's key is that the children know well enough their home language. If the child perfects language and have enough vocabulary in that language, it will be easier for them to learn second language and third language.
Okay.
So the parents should invest in teaching their children their home language, then build on that one.
The children are having an opportunity to learn more than one language, obviously, in the classroom as early as kindergarten. Many of the parents don't have that opportunity or don't have the time to pursue that opportunity for whatever reason. What do parents who have limited English proficiency do? How do they navigate the school system? Are there interpreters available to help them?
At our school, there are interpreters. And when we have our kindergarten open house, the parents let us know that they need an interpreter. And then we arrange for that to be there at conferences or at any time that we are going to be speaking with them.
Okay. And so they can just ask on the spot, go to the office and go from there for a special event. But what about day to day? My child is having problems with this or that homework assignment, or brought this problem at home as well. They'll be able to solicit the support of an interpreter.
Sometimes they need to wait, unfortunately, because an appointment has to be made with an interpreter. If they call the school ahead of time, and they have an appointment already, sometimes it cannot be as spontaneous as they would like it to be.
Okay.
Well,
because there is a shortage.
I would like to encourage parents to use the resource in the community. I mean, like other nonprofit organizations are having programs that are helping kids learn. And they can use the library. I mean, library now they have tutors and people that are there to help the kids. So, I mean, don't keep the kids at home. Take them out to the library or to places where they can learn from others.
I heard, I'm sorry?
The schools that have enough population of that language normally have liaisons that work with those families. So they have on staff someone who could speak that language and help the parent navigate the system or communicate with their teacher.
I heard from a Somali father one time about the importance of trying to retain a sense of the culture in the family and benefit from learning from other cultures in the community as well. How can parents and how do schools help with that so that your culture can learn about my culture and vice versa? Because that's important that we have an opportunity to get to know each other in a classroom and in a community.
Well, I think schools do a lot of education around that and have special events. The Hmong New Year's coming up, and in St. Paul we'll have several schools that have Hmong New Year celebrations, but everyone's invited. So we do some of those things. I'm not sure that we can ever do as much as parents might like. So from a parent's point of view, to discuss that with the teacher, to look for, some schools will have parent groups that are conducted in their home language, a Spanish, kind of Spanish-speaking PTA. Some of those things are available, or parents could start some of those groups. And I think there are school people that are interested in helping families come together and build a community within the school.
Another way of communicating is parents volunteering in the schools, being part of their child's classroom. So they really will have that impact. Sometimes I present in certain classes, even from the kindergarten, if my son, and up to 8th grade, I go and talk about my life, how I came here, what's my culture. And really, I get beautiful cards and letters from those children. So they learn through these activities and through connecting, that personal connection.
And again, it goes back to storytelling. You're telling the story of your culture and your background, and we're learning something at the same time. Good suggestions. One of the messages I'm hearing from this group is that we can help our children get ready to school in small ways every day. Here's another video on that point.
Hey, I thought you two were going to read together.
We're all going to read.
Our world is filled with words and signs.
Watch your step.
Where's our step?
Look at this, an icebox right here.
Yep.
Hello, how you doing? Welcome. That means they're glad to see us.
There are things to read everywhere.
All these words and signs.
Hey, Mom likes home canned pears.
Can you say that?
Yes, it's bread.
And we like bread.
Kids learn that words and signs have meaning.
That sign
Point them out. Read them out loud.
Live bait. What does it say?
Live bait.
You're helping him make sense of the words all around him.
It's that one.
When reading's fun, kids want to read everything.
Grandpa, can fish read too?
I sure hope not.
Read signs together. It helps kids learn.
For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
We're talking about how to get your child ready for kindergarten. You're watching Echo. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald, and our discussion is focusing on just that. How do we get children ready for kindergarten? And a little bit challenging might be, how do we help them feel confident about themselves in school, with people they've never met, and new adults in their lives, and all of that? Jesse, what would you advise parents on how you can get any child their confidence up for that first day of school and then throughout?
Well, it goes back to what Angele was saying earlier, that you need to speak to your child. The more they communicate with their adults at home, or their peers or their siblings at home, that help them to overcome their fears in connecting or learning what they need to learn. And besides, that also help the children to build their critical thinking and build on that language that will help them understand what actually each of them need to build on the skill that they need to interact with adults and other strangers. I mean, the more communicate, the more talks they have with other people, the more they can overcome with their shyness and their fears. And I think that will help them build confidence in their learning and their interaction with other people.
There are the two things that are very important. First thing is making the environment rich learning environment. So there has to be many opportunities for children to play with things, to experiment, to see how things work. So they will carry on that when they go to kindergarten and go to school. The second thing is helping children solve problems. So problem solving, so the parent doesn't rush whenever the child is stuck with something. So keep them on task and telling them just how to do things and keep going and encouraging them so they will stay on task.
And I just want to add that parents need to praise their children. I mean, if they're coming from a cultural background that you don't usually praise your kids, maybe it is time to adjust that and try, help your kids with, with things that they can do well and praise them, encourage them, compliment them in a way that was support their self-esteem, and I think that can help them improve that.
There's a lot to learn too if you're a new arrival to the United States and you're bringing your children into the school system. We're talking about resources for children, but there must be some resources for the parents too to help give them information just like that. Do many schools have programs like this for parents to support them through the process of rearing a child through the school system?
Well, actually, through the state of Minnesota, there's the Early Childhood Family Education Program, which is ECFE, which does a big job of working with immigrant families also to help them understand, be a little bit of a cultural guide to what happens in the schools. And I was thinking in our discussion that a very important thing in American education is to be able to speak in public and talk to the classroom, to your friends in the classroom. And so in kindergarten, they do something called show and tell, where a child might bring a toy from home, his teddy bear or something, and then has to explain to the class why this is important. And so for parents, if parents understand that and know that, they can help their child at home rehearse and then talk to his classroom, and that will help their confidence too. So I think any opportunities parents have to understand and to go to classes on how to understand American education is a good thing to do.
And a lot of this is relationship building too. And if you're working on your own relationships as an adult, your child is going to be watching you role model that behavior. How about parents helping children start relationships and build on social skills that help them in kindergarten? What would you suggest children do and parents do to work with making friends in classrooms and things?
I think parents can model how you make friends and also help the children by giving them the words. Ask your friend, can I play with you? Tell your friend, I don't care for how you're treating me. And I think by doing that, you have modeled and your child will be a social person within the classroom that they are entering into.
And able to take care of themselves when things aren't going so well, so they can address that.
And with what Jesse said, being comfortable going to an adult so that if something isn't quite right, they can go to the adult and say, I need your help. And you can help problem solve it with them.
Surprisingly, some of the simplest things appear to have a big impact on a child's readiness to learn, like talking with them. Here's a video on just that thought.
Hi, Grandma. What you doing?
Just planting.
Oh. Hey, Dad. What you doing?
Hey, just cooking.
You may not always feel like chatting, but the fact is, kids need conversation to help them learn.
Actually, I'm not just planting. I'm making a home for these beautiful begonias. Would you like to help me?
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you how I'm making my spicy pizza?
Fortunately, life offers plenty of opportunities to connect with your kids and engage them in rich conversation.
Pretty purple petunia.
Petunia.
So talk to your child, even before she can talk to you. The more words, the better.
Are you ready for the super secret spices?
What conversation do you think the plants will have?
They will have a conversation of good stuff.
Mozzarella cheese.
Mozzarella?
Yeah, come on, let's go.
Talk with your kids. It helps them learn. For more information, visit parentingcounts.org.
All right, one more question in our program. You're watching Echo. Anne, I'm going to start with you on this one. It has to do with what if your parent feels they're not quite ready for kindergarten?
If a parent's concerned that their child's not going to be able to come into a kindergarten class and be part of the group, or that there's skills they don't have, I think they should talk to the school district, to the teacher or the principal, and they should also bring their child to early childhood screening, because that screening that we've talked about earlier in this show is a time when parents can learn about where their child is in relation to what we would expect for their age.
Okay. Anybody else want to touch on that?
Well, I think that's something that parents need to find a way to, to assess their children's ability to learn. I mean, this early child screening, this is one tool that can help us to,
see where they're at on
to
track.
to track the children's ability to learn. But, keep in mind that there are, like I said earlier, there are all kinds of resources out there. And it really depends on how parents spend their time with their children and how they utilize the resource out there in the communities to help their children.
We'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and to you for watching us on this special edition of Echo TV. If you want more information on how to get your child ready for kindergarten, contact your local school district. And, of course, you can also take a look at Echo website. This program will be there in English, Spanish, Hmong, and Somali. You can see it at echominnesota.org. We hope you've enjoyed this special edition of Echo TV. I'm your host, Lillian McDonald. Thanks for watching. Until next time, have a great day.
Echo TV is a co-production of Minnesota's Emergency, Community, and Health Outreach Collaborative of Health, Safety, Emergency Preparedness, Ethnic and Nonprofit Agencies, and TPT's Minnesota channel.